Welcome to this week's Viva Virtuoso live podcast. This is your host, Warren Peterson, and I hope you're all having a good time out there. I think we have a crazy special show that you're going to really like today. A lot of times we emphasize the virtuoso part of Viva Virtuoso, but I think today is going to be a lot about Viva. I have a gentleman here with me who has got a lot of experience living the adventurous life, all while maintaining a connection to the arts. And we're going to talk about how he connects his desire for nature and adventure and pushing himself to the limit with creating art for people around with him. So I'd like to welcome to Viva Virtuoso, Mr. Nuno Santos. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Warren, for your very kind words. It's an honor to be here, so thank you for your kind invitation.
Oh, absolutely. Great to have you here.
Great to be
And
here.
how's the weather out? You're a little far away from me in California, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I'm currently in Portugal, so springtime. Today was actually a little rainy, but there was actually an amazing swell, so the waves were beautiful today. So it was somewhere this morning there was this combination of beautiful waves, offshore winds, and rain, and with a rainbow and just this beautiful effect in the water. So it was a magical morning.
Ah, wonderful. It sounds beautiful. Everything you've described to me
Yes, it
sounds like
was.
I could spend a year there and every day would be a little bit different, just
Yeah, exactly.
from what nature provides.
Yes. I think that's exactly what nature does. She's a very good advisor and a very good companion.
And where you live, there's actually some fairly famous waves by you. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, so I live in so Portugal is located in the western part, the most western part of Europe, and this is Atlantic Ocean, Northern Atlantic, and we have here what are considered the biggest waves in the world. The waves get very, very big around here. So normally the typical records have been broken here. So yeah, it's very large surf around here. Hello, Warren.
Nothing like.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah.
there? Okay. Yeah, I stopped seeing you on my screen, but all good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll show up and then I'll disappear, but that's okay. While you're
Okay.
talking, we want to see that little violin over in the corner and
No.
get a good look at you anyway. So
Okay.
much better looking man than I. So
Well, we share the burden.
okay, that sounds good. So nature has been a large part of your life as a kid to growing up, but so has music. And I think the intersection of those two things is where your story really gets interesting. And maybe if you could take us back in time a little bit and give us a sense how you developed these diverse loves and how you brought them together.
Okay. I mean, as a child, again, I come from a very small village, and when I was a kid, the streets, despite being a small place, the streets were not the best place to hang around. So my parents kept me busy with both music and with sports back then. Nature is just part of where I live because it's a small village. It's surrounded by ocean on one side, mountains on the other, forests. So it's a very natural, a very rural place. And so yeah, with 5 years old, started music. Also started swimming back in the swimming club. There wasn't much back then, so this is pretty much all I could do. So it all starts with that. I started playing music in a local band, in a philharmonic band. So that's where I learned music. I actually started playing percussion, and I studied percussion until I was 10 years old. And then I applied for the National Conservatory. Um, and I was also swimming, and I entered the National Conservatory, but there was no vacancy available for the percussion instruments, and so they gave me the choice to choose another instrument. And I don't know why. I was 10 years old, and I said violin. I'm pretty sure that I had never seen a violin before, and I still to the day I don't know why I chose the violin. But yeah, I was 10 years old, and for some reason I said violin, and so the rest is history. So I started studying the violin in the National Conservatory, and at the same time I was doing school like any other kid, and swimming. So I was always busy. So that kept me away from probably worse things, and I kept these activities until I was 18. So I always studied, and quite a lot. I was not a brilliant student, but I was a good student. And somewhere in time, I got this fund, this scholarship for the violin, which was a good thing. And again, I kept swimming. So this might seem good, but eventually, when I was probably 18, 19, reality kicked in, and I just saw that I wasted my my teenage years playing the violin and swimming,
Oh no.
not going out with friends and having girlfriends and all that that fun part of of
Uh,
being a teenager. But so I was a little angry with music, even more because playing the violin, and we're talking about like many years ago. I was just alone playing in the room, and yes, and in the conservatory we would do our typical concerts and auditions and all that, but not really playing with groups and having fun and rock and roll bands and all those crazy things. So pretty much classical, playing with a piano player, typically, well, of course, had the typical situation. Not, I mean, I loved it, but it was not the fun, crazy things you would wish for when you're a young man. But anyway, things when I was that age, 18, 19, I ended up going study to the university sports sciences, not music. So I was a little angry with music. So I just said, okay, enough with music. Enough of being closed at home playing the violin 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day and not seeing, or in the swimming pool swimming, but the music I saw it as a worse a less good thing. And yeah, so I went studying sports sciences, and that's it. And then I took my degree, and I did my master's, ended up doing the PhD, all in sports sciences and related. And yes, and then, but music always, I always had music. So I never quit music. And yeah, so this has been on and on for since I can remember.
and so, how did you come up with the idea of starting to integrate these passions together? How did it just you decide one day? Did you see someone else do it?
Well, Warren, that's actually, it was a very simple thing. So somewhere in time, when I finished my graduation, I was working as a PE teacher, and I didn't really felt accomplished with that job, and so I just felt the need to go and explore a little bit. So I got this job in Ecuador. Actually, with a Californian-based NGO. So yeah, I went working in South America, and before that, I had traveled not much, but a little bit, always with the violin on my back. I found that the violin is a very good way to make friends, even if you're traveling alone. It's a wonderful way to make friends. A good way to make some money sometimes when things are not going well. So and he never disagrees with you. The violin always says yes. I want to go there, and he never he never argues. So he's a very good companion. He's a very good traveling companion, and yeah. So I always took the violin with me, and obviously I went working to this very remote natural reserve in the middle of the cloud forest in Ecuador, in a very, very remote place. And obviously the violin went along with me. And yeah, so one day I just thought about climbing a volcano that was on the region. And yeah, I love the challenge so much to climb that big volcano and playing on the summit. That was such a great challenge. I just felt I wanted to do more. So it's a natural evolution. I would say just bring along the violin. You go through some crazy places. Obviously, I do enjoy very much the physical challenge and the sports side of it. Obviously, because of my background. So it's just combining my passions with the things I love. And but as time progressed, as things progressed, I just started getting bigger and bigger challenges. So that means climbing higher mountains, more complex mountains, and eventually um, I come back to Portugal after a few years traveling. And as I said, I come from a village which is known to have the biggest waves in the world. And yes, I've been a surfer for many years. So I just thought about, okay, let's give it a try. Let's try to play the violin surfing a big wave. Easier said than done. So that took me some time to train, prepare everything, all the logistics, all the physical and psychological side for it. It's not obviously it's easy to do once you got it, but before everything is complicated. So yeah, I just like the challenge very much, and that idea. I would say that sometimes it's actually the idea of playing the violin in certain places that actually makes me want to go there, or makes me want to climb those places. Because sometimes if somebody asks me, "Do you want to go and climb this mountain?" I'll be, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. But if somebody asks me, "Do you want to play violin on the summit of that mountain?" I'll be like, "Yeah, let's go." So, it's kind of like bringing it all together. So that's probably the best way to put it.
And uh, can you maybe give us an example of some of the mountains that you've climbed and played? And I'm also kind of interested in how you pick your repertoire for when you reach the summit. I mean, you could go
Okay.
crazy with puns here, but I won't.
Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples. Um, I climbed once this volcano in Ecuador, also in Ecuador. That's exactly the photo. So that's the highest active volcano in the world. It sits in Ecuador. It's about 20,000 feet, and I am. It's a beautiful volcano, and the summit is beautiful. This was actually a very hard and strenuous climb because we caught a very strong. I don't know how we say in English. Is it haze rain? That kind of rain that's kind of ice raining on you. It's not
Oh,
really.
hail or sleet, sleet,
Hail,
hail.
hail. That's it.
Yeah.
Hail. Thank you. Yeah, hail. It was a very heavy hailstorm for hours, and very strong winds. And I started doubting that we would reach the summit. And then I started thinking that even if I reach the summit, I'm not going to play anything, because with this weather, I'm not going anywhere. But yeah, we got to the summit, and for 15 minutes, the skies cleared. And the song that I played up there, it's a song that I composed. It's called Fire, from an album I released a few years ago. The album is called Elements. And so the song Fire obviously felt like a good idea to play on top of an active volcano. So the song, I produced this album playing the cello, the violin, and the piano with the loop station. And so each one of the songs approaches metaphorically the meaning of each element. So the element fire, it's an element that represents your energy, your capacity to do things, your entrepreneurship, that fire you have on yourself, that thing that makes you want to go and makes you want to fight. So that's what I play there. I can give you another example. I climbed Mont Blanc, which is the highest mountain in Europe. That was a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, and probably the last big mountain that I climbed. So the idea, what I played on the summit was a Portuguese fado. Fado is the traditional Portuguese music. It's a very nostalgic kind of music. And as a country, we've been through some harsh times in the last years, because not only of the pandemic, but before the pandemic, there was a very strong economic crisis, and just several problems we faced as a country, as a society. So I just felt like playing this traditional fado on the summit, just to make a statement saying, okay, you know what, we can do whatever we want to do, and we can achieve anything we want. We can play a Portuguese fado on the top of the biggest mountain in Europe, and let's go for it. Kind of like a message of strength and courage, because we as a society were not going through good times. So a lot of people were doubting many things. So I just decided to play this music because I felt it was the good way to approach people doing so.
Ah, ah. Nikki, can you throw that picture that you had on again of Nuno on top of the volcano, if we have it? Just wanted to check out something in the detail there. Um, I, my main question is I'm trying to see if you have gloves on or
Yeah, I do have gloves.
yeah,
Not easy to
it,
play with gloves. It's
yeah,
doable.
yeah,
It's actually doable. I take the how do you say those thick gloves. I have I use two pairs of gloves, sometimes three, but I use two pairs of gloves, and the inner layer, they're very how do you say, very thin gloves. They're not very thick, so it's not easy, but it's doable. It's, you can play with it. If I don't use the gloves, that gives me less 5 minutes of music.
I don't know, Nuno. If you just placed me on top of that mountain without a violin and just said like stand there for 30 seconds, I would probably fall off the edge. I don't
It's
know.
violent, yeah. It's not easy, and these situations of cold need to be addressed very carefully because there are some dangers and some problems you can get from it. So it's not something that to be taken lightly. And I would stress this: it's despite looking like a crazy endeavor, it's serious business, and I do take this very seriously, and I do prepare myself for this very seriously, and I surround myself with I consider to be the best people that I know, mostly for safety reasons, obviously, and also for a matter of getting surrounded with people that also help me achieve the most important thing, which is coming out of every expedition as a better person, as a better man, and that
Right.
is paramount. You know, it's music. I do consider that the reason for music to exist is to make the world a better place, and obviously, us as musicians, we need to consider that and try to become always a better persons through music. So yeah, so that is paramount. Making sure that safety procedures are assured, and obviously getting surrounded with people that can criticize me when I need to be criticized, but also give me courage and confidence when I need that, and obviously sharing those moments and appreciating the cultural side of it, because it's not only about climbing the mountain, it's about exploring the surroundings of that mountain, the music, the people, the culture, the arts that surrounds these places. So it's, I would call it as a greater experience. It's not just about mountains or just about music. It's about like I mentioned a while ago, the album Elements, and there's a very interesting thing because each one of the elements represents different traits of personality that we have. So, in short, shortly, the air represents your imagination, the capacity to be creative and to have imagination, and the fire is the capacity to make things happen, to have energy, and the water is the capacity to flow between obstacles, and earth is the element that stands for being firm, to believe in yourself, to be steady, even if things shake you maintain your position. And then obviously the quintessence, the last elements, but they only make sense if they're all combined together. I mean, there's no point on just having fire or just having earth or just having air or even two of them. You have to combine them all. You have to balance them all, and that's the purpose. It's to balance different things, because you know it's sometimes we get so lost on the technical side of things, trying to be the best surfer or the best climber or the best violin player, and I do believe that sometimes we get lost in a very technical dimension, and we forget the greater picture, which is us becoming a better person. And I will disclose something to you that I've learned through time.
Please do.
Um, as I said, I got an academic background. I worked as a lecturer in a Portuguese university for 10 years teaching sports sciences. So I would say I have a background, let's call it, in the academic world, in the music world, and in the sports world. I remember being a kid and playing the violin and going to these workshops, and sometimes going to see some concerts from major orchestras and to listen to a certain musician that was very mentioned. And sometimes I was lucky enough to meet those musicians. And but I remember many times I wasn't impressed with meeting those people at all. And again, the same happened in the academic world. So I was doing my master's, my PhD, all that. I would go to congresses and meet those people that I've been reading in books and articles and researches and all that. And then I would meet those people in congresses, and I was like, not really impressed with this person. He's brilliant. He's very smart. He's amazing. His research is very smart, but in human traits, I'm not impressed with this person. And then the same in sports. I met very high level athletes, people that I surf with, and elite climbers, people that sometimes climb along. And in the end, I'm not impressed sometimes with what I see, because I do think that people sometimes get lost in the technical side of things and they forget the greater picture, which is becoming a better person. There's no point, in my opinion, to become an amazing violinist. And I'm sorry to say this in a rough way, but if you're an idiot, there's no point on being a great violin player. So the concern will always be becoming a better person, being aware of your weaknesses, our weaknesses, and obviously our strengths, and improve those weaknesses, and obviously being aware of those strengths and using them for good things. And this is what this project means so much to me, because nature, mostly nature, will put me in my position, will put me in my place. And sometimes if I misbehave, nature will teach me a lesson. And normally it's a painful lesson, believe me. I mean, the ocean, the mountains sometimes give you a humble piece of pie, and you will eat it, and you'll go home, and you'll think about yourself and why that happened. Because normally when problems happen, it's because of you mainly, and because of your personality. Because sometimes even it has to do all with wrong decisions, and wrong decisions are the reflex of your personality, of your treats. And what I believe with this project, which is called The Violin in the Most Unlikely Places, I do try to use this to become or to try to become a better person, and obviously a better father. I am a father. I have a little daughter, and that is very important for me. So yeah, so it's about becoming a better person. I do take things seriously. I want to play well the violin. I want to surf well those waves. I want to climb well those mountains. Yes, but that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to become a better person. How do I do that? Like learning what nature is telling me, about being humble, about knowing those people that surround these places, because normally these are places that have also their own culture, and trying to understand and trying to learn about that. And that makes me a better person ultimately. And that's what I see as the great goal.
Well, it sounds like a very communal experience for you, whether it's communing with nature or communing with others that are participating in your experiences. And when looked at with the right frame of mind, I think that we may zig and zag a little bit, but it ought to lead to growth, and it sounds like it definitely has for you.
Well, it's still happening. It's never an accomplished thing.
Sure, it's a process, and
yeah.
We had that picture flashed up there, and I have a feeling that Nikki's lurking in the background, wanting to show us that surfing picture again, since it's so. I mean, it's a stunning photo, first of all, but it's a stunning photo of a stunning feat. Uh, uh, Nikki, what do you have to say? Are you out there? She's saying, "Wow."
Hi, Nuno.
Hello, Nikki. Can you hear me?
So what do I have to say? I do have a question. In God's name, why? What made you start this? What made you do this?
Well, it's Nikki, it's just a logical evolution of things. It's bring the violin along to everywhere I go and just play there. whether it's playing for me, whether it's playing for people around. Sometimes I had a friend once telling me that it's the closest way I get to play to God. So he said the reason why I want to play in such high mountains and such large waves, it's to get closer to God and play to Him. So it's a mix of a rational decision of searching to be a better athlete, a better surfer, a better climber, and a better musician, but also a better person. And I do find the communion between nature and music to be very natural. And that just in the beginning, again, it felt like, okay, this is a little crazy, but let's just do it. But through time, I found out that these activities are so similar between each other. And I'll give you a good example. Let's, for example, take surfing and violin playing. It's just people ask me, what do you think when you're surfing a big wave playing the violin? And I'm saying it's no different than playing in an orchestra. Only the chair moves. But I mean, I got the maestro. I got to look at the maestro, which is the wave. So I got to do what the wave tells me to do. But at the same time, I have to look at the paper, which is the path that I have to follow on that wave. And at the same time, sometimes I have to look at my fingers, making sure everything is in the right position. It's exactly the same what a musician does in an orchestra. The only difference is that my chair moves a little bit, but it's exactly the same. I got the maestro, I got I got my partiture, and I got my violin to attend. So, and this obviously we're talking about metaphorically, but I'll give you some more examples. Building a surfboard and building a violin, it's exactly the same processes, it's exactly the same tools, and these are jobs executed by very skilled craftsmen. And knowing what you want from a violin and from a surfboard, it's something that takes years to develop. You can, even if you have all the money in the world, even if you might be able to buy the wrong violin for you or the wrong surfboard. It's something that it's not only about having tons of money to it's about knowing what you want and learning about those processes. I'm not a violin maker, but I do understand what I want from a violin. And through time and experience, you learn what you need and what you want according to your needs and what you play. So these are very similar things. And even playing music, in this case the violin, and then doing sports, it's exactly the same. It's human performance. It's human skills. It's the training procedure. It's the same. You have to train 2-3 hours a day, whether it's sports, whether it's music. You start with a warm up, then you have the main part, which you take a little step by step. So then I'm going to work out this little bit and this little bit, and then you have the cool down. You finish it by doing small, like slow exercises. It's exactly the same. The processes are exactly the same.
Yeah, and I would have to agree in a lot of ways, even though I don't play music. But how has, and we have to talk about the pandemic and what it's done to not just music, but also other activities. So how do you stay in shape as both a musician and a surfer in this pandemic? Like, have things changed for you? Have your habits changed? Have your routines changed?
Yes. I mean, obviously, all the concerts were canceled, all the events, all the weddings, everything I had in my agenda was canceled, and that was a strong blow because I stopped my work at the university to dedicate myself fully to music and to this project, and which I do understand might be seen as a crazy thing, but through time and throughout the years, I've learned that what I was doing in music, if I invested a little more, I could make a living out of it. Not obviously, we're not talking about becoming a millionaire, but it would be enough to keep me up, because I'm much more excited doing these adventures than I was replying 80 emails a day on my office and doing boring things. So it was a decision that I ended up taking. So it's something that through time I've learned that I could take a step further and a step further and a step further, and that was on the size of the waves, on the size of the mountains, on the decision of quitting university and dedicating myself to this. So it's been a slow build, a slow, how do you say, a slow evolution. But this pandemic obviously brought another difficulty. There's always difficulties, the life is always throwing difficulties at you. And I'll tell you about one that I just found out this week. Life is always bringing difficulties. So you better choose your difficulties. And the most important thing is that if you believe in what you do, if you really, it's not only about being passionate about what you do, it's about really believing in it, that will make you a better person. And I do. I actually believe in this project because ultimately I do know that I'm a better person with it and I'm a better father with it. Even though that sometimes people will criticize me for doing some things, and yeah, but I'm comfortable with that because I know what I'm doing, and this is not a crazy thing. It started as a little crazy thing, but through time, I've put my feet on the ground and thought carefully about it. So yes, it was a very tough year. I had to rethink a lot of the things that I was doing. Some of the objectives that were set, I had to pass them for the next years. But again, there's always a way. It was a tough year. Obviously, I had no concerts. I had no work at all. So what I did is, because I live in a very small village, and I turned myself into the land. So I started growing a lot of food, raising more animals. So that kept me quite busy. Also, I kept my training, my playing every day, studying violin, training, doing my let's call it my routine, my training routines, always thinking about my goals. I actually, during the beginning of the pandemic, I actually wrote a business plan for the next 7 years with exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. I'm just not sure if it's going to happen, because obviously there's always the funding part, so that's the challenge. But I know exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. And that's the thing about believing in what you do, not only about being passionate, because passion is very important. Obviously, you need to love what you do. You need to have that motivation. But if you believe that what you do ultimately makes you and the world a better place, I think that brings that extra motivation to run that extra mile. And that's exactly what happened. I remember that in the beginning, in the pandemic, after the first quarantine here in Portugal, I had just released an album. So I released an album on the 7th of March, on my daughter's birthday, and on the 15th of March, the government closed the country, so everybody went home. So as you can imagine, I invested quite a lot in this album, and I had my concerts and all my agenda, and suddenly no concerts. I got a bunch of boxes with CDs at home, with CDs that won't be sold, and I had nothing. And obviously no concerts, no income, no nothing. So I just took on my bicycle, I put my violin on my back, and for a month I went cycling around the country. And I just did it because I wanted to promote my album. And I thought, okay, you know what? No concerts, no, it doesn't matter. I'll just go and promote the album. Whenever this is over, I'll get concerts again. And suddenly I had every TV channel on my back talking about this guy going around the country on a bicycle with his violin on his back, and just for the sake of it. And I ended up spending almost a month doing this. I spent almost no money. And it was amazing because he gave me promotion, but I only did it because I believe in it, because I love, this is my life. It's not only my job, it's my life. And that's what I mean. If you find something that you truly believe, you hold it strongly. And that is a person, or let's call it, I don't want to call it a job. Can you help me here in English? An occupation, not an occupation, but I missed the right word. But if you find something that completes you, you hold it strong. Whether it's a spouse, whether it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever, or it's an occupation, because you found your call there, and that is very important. And sometimes life brings strange things. I'll tell you about another story that I found out a couple of days ago. In October, last October, we had here in Portugal a gigantic swell. It was something that me as a surfer, I've never seen nothing such as so big before. It was gigantic, the biggest waves I've ever seen in my life. And I was working. I do have sometimes work as a pilot, driving other professional surfers into these waves. It's a very skilled work, and not many people do it. So yeah, I was driving, towing these guys, and suddenly someone asks, "Hey, anyone wants to get a wave?" And I was like, "Okay, go for it." And I thought, okay, I got my chance here to get a couple of waves today, because if you get a wave on a day like that, it can change your life. These are, and obviously I trained so hard for that I just wanted to get that wave. And the story is, I didn't have much time to surf. I did not have the jet skis or the resources, so I was actually driving other people and using their resources, but they were kind enough to let me use them. So I didn't want to push things too much. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go for one wave or two, and that's it. I don't want to push it too much. So my partner was driving me, towing me around. And this is a very strenuous activity. Getting towed by a jet ski in big surf, physically it's very demanding for your legs, for your arms, for your back. It's very demanding. And because there was no time, we had to push a little more, trying to find that wave. And after several minutes towing around, covering very large distances, trying to find that wave, which wasn't coming, suddenly in the horizon, these huge waves come. And I look at my partner, we look at each other, we wave our heads and say, let's go for it. There were 4 waves on this set, gigantic waves. We missed the first 2 because we couldn't reach them in time. So there were 2 waves left, the third and the fourth wave. The third wave was huge. And it turns the jet ski, and we start chasing that wave. But as he turns the jet ski, I saw that behind there was an even bigger one. But again, it wasn't my stuff, wasn't my jet ski, wasn't my resources. So I just, okay, let's go for that wave and whatever. And what happened was, the biggest wave I've ever surfed in my life was a huge wave. And almost at the end of the wave, I fell. And there was a very violent wipeout. And my team couldn't get to me. So the wave that was behind that was even bigger. And I have a photo of that that I found out a couple of days ago. And it's the biggest wave I've ever seen in my life. That landed straight on me. And it was the most extreme thing I've ever been through in terms of big wave surfing.
Wait, that was the most extreme thing you've ever been through? Because that's saying a lot.
Yeah, it's radical stuff. And what I found out is that this particular wave, there was another surfer surfing this wave. And everybody says it's a world record, the biggest wave ever surfed, which says that theoretically the biggest wave ever surfed landed on my head, which says that I took the biggest wave in the head ever. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I can tell it was a huge wave. And when I saw the photo, I was like, I couldn't sleep on that night. Because obviously this brought some ghosts and some stuff that I'm sorting out on my head right now. And what I can say is, can you see the difference between success and failure? It's just one wave. If I had got that wave, the one that I looked, that was behind another big one, which I didn't go because I had no time and there was I didn't have the resources, so I just go in whatever I can. If I had chosen that wave, I would be now probably arguing to have surfed the biggest wave in the world, but I didn't. And that's it. And sometimes life throws melons at you, or lemons. Sorry, lemons. That's what he's saying. And this very fine balance. It's very important, because obviously in a minute you think, yeah, what if I had surfed that big wave? Your life changes, because it's a very important thing for a surfer to surf such a large wave. Personally, I think the award itself of the biggest wave doesn't make much sense. It's just like saying the best violin player in the world. It makes no sense. I mean, it's so, how do you say, so it's a very difficult decision to make. It doesn't make sense. But at the same time, it changes your life if you get that award. So balancing these things, it's a challenge, and sometimes things don't go the right way, and sometimes nature teaches you a lesson, and maybe nature was teaching me a lesson that day, And so that's how I'm seeing things right now. It's violent experience, very very extreme experience, and that's it. You learn to live with it. And now, obviously, after that, my head was not in the right place. It took me some months to go through the whole experience and build my levels of confidence again. And it's been a slow evolution, but that's the interesting part of it. You fall and then you get up and you continue, and this only happens again if you believe in what you're doing.
Right. So you have talked a lot. Sorry, Warren. I'm hogging this a little bit, but I do have one more question. You talk a lot about, possible, impossible, being prepared, and all of that. And I'm sorry, I don't know if that's the title of the whole album or just one of the pieces, but I believe that's the album that you were just talking about, Fado Improvável, right?
Yeah,
The improbable Fado.
yeah.
And so you talk a lot about, there are possibilities, there are what people consider impossible feats,
Mhm.
and you talk a lot about improbability, but making it plausible, making it possible. I'm going to tie that into an actual musical question. Why Fado for that? And can you actually tell us a little bit more about the little known but very old Portuguese genre of music known as Fado?
Okay, yes, gladly. So the word fado actually relates with the English word fate. So fado is your fate. So we see it as what's meant to happen. So what's meant for you. Sometimes we argue that we are the drivers of our life, and we decide the paths we take in our life, which is true. But sometimes we're just swimming in a big ocean, and the currents of that ocean actually say where you go and where you don't go. You can actually be a very good swimmer, but those currents actually sometimes take you to places, to unexpected places, to unlikely places. And so yes, I took on the fado, obviously because it's something that means a lot to me as a Portuguese. Also because I'm very much interested in world music, and it's our music. It's something that we can actually show to other people, show to the world. And yes, the unlikely is because how unlikely is it to study sports sciences, to become a teacher, a professor, and ending up as a violin player, playing in big waves and in high mountains? And it's about sometimes believing a little bit in yourself, and also being creative. I think that's another important word. And what I mean creative is also about not being obsessed with just being the best, or being the strongest, or the fittest, or the fastest, or we love those words nowadays. We just love to reduce a very complex thing to one word. It's the strongest, or the fastest, or the best, or the whatever. We love that as a society nowadays. But that's, if we think about it carefully, that is affecting our creativity. We are, as a society, we're just following the herd so much. We're doing what everyone else does. We're doing everything the same way everyone else does, and that brings little diversity to things. And sometimes I just and I can explain this, and I can argue this in a very simple way. It's, how is it possible to, doesn't matter the business you're talking about, whether it's music, whatever business you're talking about, there's always major brands that dominate the markets, always. And the only reason they dominate the market is because they have a large amount of customers, or people that buy that service or product. So how is it possible that so many people buy the same thing? Is it that good? Or are we believed where someone makes us believe that it's really good? No, there's so many different things in the world. There's so much. I mean, there's so much music in the world, and if you turn on the radio, the main stations, it's always the same people singing. And sometimes It makes no sense because if you wonder, like nowadays, every song that's on mainstream radio, it's about love. So there's always somebody singing about love or something related with love or about relationships or something like that. And sometimes I laugh because sometimes you got artists that every 6 months they change their boyfriend or girlfriend, but they're singing about love. And I'm thinking, what does this person know about love to be singing about it? He changes his girlfriend every
Yes.
6 months. So it makes no sense, And we're
Yeah,
just
some people have made careers out of that.
professional lovers.
Well, in my way of thinking, Nuno, what you do is truly virtuosic, and that it's multidisciplinary. Um, the best thing I can liken it to is someone that would be a decathlete or a pentathlete or biathlete that has learned how to take very, very different things and merge them together and achieve a point of excellence of doing that. That is unique, and that does define them. And
Thank
I
you.
think in all ways you are a virtuoso. So one thing I think we have to, speaking of Fado, I think the world is luckier that you didn't learn how to play harmonica, because I think you would have had some really tough times on the top of those mountains.
Yes, or tuba. That would be difficult to carry.
Yes, yes, that would be a lot of. But what I would like to do is, I mean, you've talked about CDs that you have. It sounds like maybe you have more than one. I know you're ramping up, more of an an international presence, and I'd like you to tell our audience exactly how they can learn more about you, where they can listen, purchase your music, what you have in store, how they can reach you.
Thank you for the opportunity. So yeah, social media, the typical Facebook and Instagram and the LinkedIn accounts, they all have the same name, which is my name, Nuno Santos, and ending up with violin. So that's all on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also my website, which has the same name, and YouTube channel the same, and the same with Spotify and with iTunes and all the major platforms, music platforms. So the name is always the same if you type it on Google. And to make it easier, if you type surf and violin on Google, I'm pretty sure you'll find something about me too. So yeah, that's the easiest way. And as for my music, nowadays, either we like it or not, having a strong support on social media is very important to get to music promoters, to concert promoters, and it's a good business card, to have highly engaged social media. So yeah, if people want to give me a follow on the social media, I'll be very, very happy with that. And yeah, and just
Yeah,
keep an eye on the guy that's playing the violin in
yeah,
mountains and
absolutely.
waves.
And I'd like to encourage all the viewers here to follow Nuno on social media, subscribe to his YouTube channel, check out his music, check out his footage. I mean, it's not just a musical experience; it's a quite an aesthetic experience that combines nature with sounds of nature with sounds of the violin. I guess would be one way of saying it. And I think we're gonna wrap up this show. And if you like our show, please, and you're new to it, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Like the video if you liked it, and share it around. And let's get Nuno some more followers.
Thank you, and thank you again, Nikki and Warren, for the opportunity, and Terry too. It's been amazing talking to you guys, and I'm sorry if I talk too much. Sometimes I get excited.
No,
Not at all.
no.
Not
Thank
at
you.
all.
Thank you guys so much.
All stimulating.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's been a pleasure. Pleasure's been ours.
Likewise.
And with that, it's a wrap.